quick about the Harris Center. If you haven't been here before and you want to find out more about the Harris Center on the hike, I'll be happy to talk about it. But basically we do land protection and education, and I should have said that kind of in reverse because we do a lot of education on the land and the community that we're protecting.
Clear. Thanks, Susie. So I'm Eric Aldrich. I live in Hancock, and I've been here for some ungodly number of years. And let's see. So first of all, I'm really happy you're all here. This is great. I'm glad you can join us for this trip to Jack's Pond, where we'll talk about Jack and sort of set the context about. They're probably tied up with other issues right now. Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, it follows stream. I've done that. Yeah. Another reason why I don't like trails that much.
High school, and if you keep going on
This is a nice spot for the pond. There's another spot to take a if you want to take a picture right down there.
Okay.
Down that trail. We're starting to get a little color now. Where to start? So, before this was Jack's Pond, before it became known as Jack's Pond, it was known as Warren Pond after Peter Warren. And Peter Warren built a house in that direction between Jack's Pond and Tenny and Shadrach Pond. Not too far from here. I'd say maybe half a mile or so.
How long ago was that?
You can do it, yeah. So Peter Warren built a house, 1783, lived there till about 1800. And so this was known as Warren Pond. And I imagine in that day this pond was much, much smaller. And I don't know any of this, but I imagine Peter Warren had something to do with damming it up, or probably putting in an initial dam. Probably in late 1800s, early 1900s, they started calling it Jack's Pond. So about Jack, though, he came to Hancock. We're not even sure when he came to Hancock. It was probably, we know he was here in 1790, but he may have been here as early as 1779. And it's most likely he came with another gentleman named James Dew. And we know James Dew was here in 1779. And we know in 1790 that James Dew was here with another fellow. And here's the light show made.
Okay.
So this is the 1790 U.S. Census, right? First federal U.S. Census. And this is for town of Hancock. This is just one page. It was only 2 pages long for that first census. And this is a list of the people who lived in Hancock. This is the second page here. And the last person on the list is James Dew. It's spelled then James Drew. And it's way over here on this column. If you can see that red dot, I'll pass this around in a second. But it's way over here. That last column, which indicates all other free persons, right? So non-white, but free. And there's 2 there. So 2 adults, and one was James Dew, and I think the other was Jack, right? Mm-hmm. But we have little bits and pieces about him from the census a little bit, and from the town history from 1889, and from his gravestone and other sources. But we know he was born in Africa, as the story goes, born in Africa, somehow enslaved from Africa, captured, kidnapped, and brought over to this continent in what must have been a harrowing journey, and as a child, and was enslaved along with, at the time, 1790, I think there was 700,000 enslaved people in this country. So somehow, we don't know where he lived at this point, somehow he became free and ended up in Hancock, living off and on with the Dew family, James Dew, and worked with and for James Dew and his family, lived with James Dew over at the Welch Farm, what is now the Welch Farm, on Stoddard Road, and was in his 60s when he came here, right? So he died in 1826. Jack died in 1826, and his age was estimated to be about 100. And, you know, he may not have known how old he was. He probably didn't know the year he was born. I don't know. So, but that's all we know about that. In the Hancock history, Centennial has only a limited amount of information on it, but I can read what it says. It's pretty short. There's not a whole lot of there's not a Black History section in the Hancock history. So like that's the page, and this is all about Jack Ware. It isn't a whole lot. It says Jack Ware, a colored man, he had been a slave, was stolen from the coast of Africa. Mrs. Fracas, she's mentioned elsewhere, writes that the story he told her father, Meshach Tenney, was that when he was a little boy, a white man came along in a fine buggy and broke a cake in two, gave him one half and his little brother the other. Then he picked them up and carried them off, just like a hawk would a hen. The date of his coming to Hancock is not known. He resided at 41, which is over here where Peter Warren lived, right? And was very much beloved by all who knew him, especially the children of his neighbors, to whom he was very kind. Josiah Stone informed me